All right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to the Mythgard Academy. This is session number 17 of our discussion of Sir Thomas Malory's Le Morte d'Arthur as we continue our inevitable grind towards the longest Mythgard Academy class ever while still being less than halfway through Le Morte d'Arthur. So welcome back, everyone. So glad you guys are still with me here. Tonight. So we're gonna be officially behind one way or the other after tonight. So I'll say this again at the end, but here's the plan. I want to get through the Tristram material. My goal, my dream here tonight is to get through this first big block of Sir Tristram material, and then the little adventures of Sir Lamorak that we get after that. But I do not aspire, in fact, to get to the little mini story of Sir La Cote Maltail, Sir the ill-fitting coat or the ill-made coat, another one of Kay's spiteful nicknames. Anyway, so we'll get that little mini adventure. We'll do that next time. So then I think we can do that for next week. Anyway, we'll see. We'll see what we can do, and then we'll have Thanksgiving week after that. But anyway. So that's the plan. That's the plan for tonight. Before we jump in, though, I just want to have one quick announcement, which is not a new announcement, but it is an urgent announcement, and that is Magnolia Moot, which is happening in 2 days' time. I will be in Charlotte, North Carolina, and looking forward to seeing folks there. Really cool crowd at Magnolia Moot. I'm looking at the list of people who are coming, and I'm like, oh man, so many awesome people. I can't wait to talk to. And so many that I haven't gotten a chance to meet yet that I'm going to finally get a chance to meet in person. It's going to be so cool. So if you are anywhere near Charlotte, North Carolina, there is still just time to register tomorrow. That is, for those of you who are not listening live, Thursday, November, whatever day tomorrow is, 8th, that's what it is. November 8th, Thursday, November 8th is the last day to register. So please do go and register if you possibly can. It's going to be really cool. So oh, Rachel, are you gonna come to Magnolia Moot too? Did I miss your name on the list? I've been I kind of scanned through it, but I don't think I caught everybody. I just a couple of names I caught. Oh, cool, you're coming too. That's awesome, fantastic. Yeah, no, that's going to be great. So I'm super looking forward to going to Magnolia Moot in just a couple days. So I hope that you can join me. Again, just go to signumuniversity.org, scroll down a little bit, and you'll see the Magnolia Moot little panel for you to click on there. And the registration link is right there on that page that you click through to. So I hope to be able to see some of you. After this, we're going to have, there's like 2 full mootless months to come. Our next moot isn't until January after that, which after the last month feels like, ages and ages. I'm going to go into moot withdrawal, I think, before we get down to text moot in January. So that's going to be, I'm looking forward to text moot. But anyway, yeah, as I say, we'll have a gap before that. So this is your last moot chance in a while there. So, all right. That concludes my announcement. So now let us get back into the story of Sir Tristram here. So you may recall that we had just gotten to the pharmacological angle, that is the love potion, right? And one of the things, again, that I was suggesting there, one of the things that I was that I was just suggesting in looking at the love potion is the way in which Malory seems to be kind of wanting to have it both ways, right? We were looking last time at how much attention he is drawing to the fact that Sir Tristram has made the choice, right? He gets so many opportunities to do things differently, right? He has all kinds of excuse to just marry La Belle Isolde himself, right? But he doesn't do it. He sort of insists that she goes back and marries King Mark so that they can have a tragic love triangle instead. Though it's not exactly a love triangle with King Mark, because nobody loves King Mark, right? I mean, who loves King Mark? Nobody. Like, his own mother probably doesn't love King Mark. Nobody loves King Mark. So it's not, properly speaking, a love triangle so much as it is just an illicit affair complicated by treason, which, you know, is not a good look. So, but again, but it is a familiar look, and one which is important, certainly, even if for no other reason it would be important as a foil for the much more significant story of Lancelot and Guinevere, as I was suggesting last time. But again, that element of simultaneously choice and inevitable fate, right? It is just by chance that they drink this magical love potion, which makes them helplessly in love with each other. For the most part, it seems the efficacy of the love potion seems to be potentially a little bit it kind of wears off on Tristram a little bit, it sort of seems. But anyway, whatever. The point is, we get both, right, with them. And again, I think the more I think about it, and the more I read and reread Malory's Tristram, the more I feel that Malory is very sort of conspicuously setting the stage. And I think that's one of the reasons why the story of Tristram and Isolde, as Malory tells it in itself, like, again, nobody just extracts like the story of Tristram and Isolde is told by Malory, because it's not, he doesn't really make a real story of it on its own. It's a setup, right? It's a preparation. It's paving the way for the real story that's going to come later on. Tomas suspects that the drink was a placebo. Possibly. Can't rule it out. Can't rule it out. The narrator tells us it isn't, but you know, I can understand if you have your suspicions. All right. So we had just gotten. So soon after, Isolde comes to Cornwall, so she's married King Mark, and they're prepared to live miserably ever after. But remember, Isolde was bringing her damsel, Brangwain. So we have both Tristram and Isolde each have their own sort of servant, right? They're you know, their number one, their backup person, to whom they're both devoted, right? We've got Gouvernail, the manservant of Tristram, and of course we have Brangwain, the maidservant of Isolde. Now, again, as in so many instances here, Brangwain is a much bigger character in the source stories that Malory is working with. She gets brought in by name, like Gouvernail gets brought in by name, but there's not that huge of a role for her to play. But here we go. Carita says Sir Tristram is like the budget Sir Lancelot. Yeah, he is kind of like the poor man Sir Lancelot. You don't have time to read the whole full excellent dramatic story. You can read the shorter, dirtier version with Sir Tristram here. Now, of course, it's not quite fair to say that it's the version of the same story, right? Sir Tristram is not the knight that Lancelot is, and then we see him making choices that Lancelot would never make, right? Lancelot is totally not going to do any of these things, we know. Okay. When Isolde the queen missed her maiden. Oops, I forgot. I was explaining context. So the other ladies of the court, like the Cornish ladies who have been assigned to be the ladies in waiting on the new queen from Ireland, are envious, right, of Brangwain, her personal, lady that she brought with her from Ireland, and to whom she is obviously attached. They see her as an upstart rival, right, and so they get rid of her. They drag her off into the woods and tie her to a tree and leave her there, which, tough politics in the court of Cornwall. We've talked a couple times about, the sort of the court of the ladies, right? When there's the leaderboard, the chivalric leaderboard, but then, the ladies have their own system, and apparently sometimes it's fairly cutthroat. But anyway, okay. When Isolde the queen missed her maiden, wit you well she was right heavy as ever any queen might be, for of all earthly women she loved her best and most, cause why she came with her out of her country. And so upon a day, Queen Isolde walked into the forest to put away her thoughts, and there she went herself unto a well, and made great moan. And suddenly there came Sir Palomides unto her, and heard all her complaint, and said, Madam Isolde, and ye will grant me my boon, I shall bring to you Dame Brangwine, sauf and sound. Then the queen was so glad of his proffer that suddenly, unadvised, she grant all his asking. Well, madam, said Sir Palomides, I trust to your promise, and if ye will abide half an hour here, I shall bring her to you. So you may remember, Sir Palomides happened across Brangwaine as she was tied to the tree and left for dead, right? So he's already rescued her and she'd been there for an indeterminate amount of time, so she was not in a good way, right? So he's legitimately rescued her, and he brings her to a local nunnery for her to recuperate, right? So on the one hand, this was a kindly and charitable thing, right, for Palomides to do, right? And yet, even in the initial moment, right, that is in his choice to take her to the nunnery, he doesn't say anything, right? He doesn't go to the court and be like, hey, is anybody missing a maiden? Found one tied to a tree, right? He doesn't do that. He sort of squirrels her away and keeps his own counsel. And was this his strategy all along? Was he did he was he planning to sort of entrap Isolde? And much as I like Sir Palomides, that seems quite probable, right? That this was in fact his strategy all along. But I want to think carefully about this. What I want to be thinking about here is, what is Sir Palomides up to exactly? We know Sir Palomides was in love with Isolde, right? Remember, he and Tristram were rivals for Isolde way back when Tristram was cunningly disguised as Sir Tramtrist, right, back in Ireland. And you may also remember that when Sir Tristram defeated Sir Palomides in their first encounter there at the tournament in Ireland, Tristram, made Sir Palomides, upon his defeat, promise not only not to bear arms for 12 months, but to give up all pretensions of love towards Isolde, right? So he made him swear off Isolde already, right? And so now here's Palomides apparently beginning his next sort of a scheme, right? He seems not, in fact, to have wholly given up, but there also might be more to it than that here. So we'll have to see. So he promises, if you swear a rash vow to me, promise to give me anything I ask you, then I'll bring you your damsel in half an hour. And notice how the narrator has emphasized how suddenly and unadvisedly she grants all his asking. She doesn't qualify it. Remember that reasonable qualification that people like to throw in, right? I'll grant you anything reasonable. She doesn't qualify it, right? She's just like anything. Sire, I shall abide you, said the queen. Then Sir Palomides rode forth his way to that nunnery, and lichtly he came again with Dame Brangwine. But by her good will, she would not have come to the queen, for cow she stood in adventure of her life. Notwithstanding, half again her will, she came with Sir Palomides unto the queen, and when the queen saw her, she was passing glad. Now, madam, sighed Sir Palomides, remember upon your promise, for I have fulfilled my promise. Brangwine's reluctance, if I'm understanding that right, she says, so by her goodwill, she wouldn't have come to the queen. She doesn't want to go back to Isolde, right? Why doesn't she want to go back to Isolde? Not because she doesn't like Isolde, right? I mean, they do seem to be legitimately good friends, but for how she stood in adventure of her life, right? She's like, look, those Cornish ladies are trying to kill me, right? If they failed the first time, they might be more direct the second time, right? I might not get the tied to a tree and left for dead treatment the next time. And I totally agree with you, Karita. This absolutely qualifies as a hostile working environment for Brangwine here. And that seems to be, she's like, can I talk to my union rep or somebody, right? This is, it's got to be better here. Yeah. Dolores Stroke says, next up, somebody's going to bring Isolde her name's missing L, South and Sound. Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, so, Karita, you might think that bringing the Queen's damsel off into the woods and attempting to murder her. I mean, attempted murder you'd think would be a crime, even if the intended victim is Irish. But that's doesn't seem to come up. I'm not sure why, Karita. I'm thinking because King Mark. Right. Again, nobody likes King Mark, and he's fairly useless. So I think no good is going to be coming from that quarter. Yeah, so stood in adventure of her life, Crystal Eowyn, literally it means like her life is at risk, basically. She's like taking a chance with her life if she goes back, essentially is what that means. Adventure, just it means like you don't know what's going to happen, right? So her life is at stake if she goes back to the court, and she knows it. Yeah. Okay. So Palomides, his plan is going well, right? Remember upon your promise, for I have fulfilled my promise, right? Okay, so what is he going to ask? He comes in to the court and is like, so your wife promised me anything I asked. And, well, madam, sighed the king, and if ye were hasty to grant what boon he would ask, I wold well that ye performed your promise. Then sighed Sir Palomides, I wold that ye weet that I will have your queen to lead her and to govern her whereas me list. Therewith the king stood still, and unbethocht him of Sir Tristramus, and deemed that he would rescue her. And then hastily the king answered and said, Tak here to thee, and the adventures with all that will fall of it, for, as I suppose, thou wilt not enjoy her no while. As for that, said Sir Palomides, I dar recht well abide the adventure. And so, to mak short tale, Sir Palomides took her by the hand and said, Madam, grutch not to go with me, for I desire nothing but your own promise. As for that, sighed the queen, weet you well, I fear not greatly to go with thee, howbeit thou hast me at advantage upon my promise, for I doubt not I shall be worshipfully rescued fro thee. As for that, said Sir Palomides, be as it be may. Okay, Tarlonio, isn't unbethought a pretty awesome word? I mean, come on, that's an awesome word. Oops, sorry. Okay, there we go. Yeah, so but David and Tarlonio are both commenting on this word. I'm not sure I fully understand that construction either. The is a bethought, I get, right? He bethought himself. Bethought is a kind of reflexive construction, right? Like, you bethink yourself very often, right? That is like to think twice about something, to think within yourself, right? But unbethocht, I'm not sure exactly what the accomplishes there. Not really. Not it's but I like it, right? I'm not sure I get it, but I like it. But anyway, okay. So my question, what's he doing? Palomides. Tell me, what is Palomides' plan? What's he after here? What's his play? What's his big picture here? What do you think? And Karita, you are so right. King Mark is not a great king, and he's not a great husband, right? But notice what he is, right? He's got a fairly high level of low cunning, right? King Mark is reasonably good at calculating, like, sort of how things are going to turn out, right? Yeah, I think Karita and Francis and Zach, that's exactly how I read it too. King Mark is thinking, okay, he's asked for my wife, Isoude. On the one hand, that's incredibly rude, right? I mean, that's amazingly presumptuous and an insult not only to me personally, because it's my wife, but to the Cornish throne, right? I mean, this is this is seriously bad. But here's King Mark saying, but he has dug his own grave, right? Because I know Sir Tristram is going to go after him, right? This is where having the greatest knight in your land, having an invested adulterous interest in your own wife comes in handy, right? When you know he's not going to let him get away with this, right? So why should King Mark try to resist this, especially since, of course, he's on shaky legal ground? Palomides has Isoude granted him, right? So he would have to make his wife break her promise in order to annul this, right? And that would be tricky. At the very least, he would lose face. She would certainly lose face, right? So, so he's like, hey, no, this is great. As far as he's concerned, this is like a win-win proposition, right? Besides which, he doesn't seem to be all that attached to his wife anyhow. So I'm going to leave the queen to be rescued by Sir Tristram. That's going to be great. But I certainly think that, again, Zach and Carita and Francis are completely correct. That's Palomides' plan all along, right? And I think you can hear that in his answer, right? King Mark is trying to be all ominous, right? Talk here to thee and the adventurers that withal, the adventurers withal that will fall of it, right? Yes, take her and get what else is going to come to you that goes along with her, right? It's a package deal, and you're not going to like the rest of it, I think, right? And Palomides says, as for that, I dar right well abide the adventure, right? He's like, oh, I'm ready for the adventure that comes with it, right? Now, remember, we have a model for this, right? Malory likes doing this kind of thing. What's our model? What prepares us for this? See, we might be tempted to just, especially knowing Palomides' history, right? I mean, he was all besotted with Isoude before. So if we just had that, we might be tempted to read this as be like, he's just still like drooling all over Isoude. So he comes in and he's like, haha, and now I've promised, I've maneuvered her into a place where she has to promise to go away with me. So hooray, now I have the lady of my desires that I've been stalking, right? That would seem like a fairly compelling, like, do you need to look any further for the explanation? But yeah, no, that's not it. Of course, we have a model, right? Sir Bleoberis and Sir Segwarides' wife. Remember when Sir Bleoberis comes into the court, and we looked at this last week, just trying to stir up trouble, right? King, grant me anything I ask for. Hey, great. I would like the choice of lady. I'd like to take the most beautiful lady of the court and just ride off with her, right? And clearly he's doing this. He doesn't have any intentions towards the lady. How he treats her, and even when she chooses to go with him, right? Remember Sir Bleoberis, I mean, they give her the choice. Do you want to go with Tristram or do you want to stay with Sir Bleoberis? And she's like, heck, I'm staying with Sir Bleoberis because Sir Tristram's a jerk. What is Sir Bleoberis' response? He's not like, sweet, free damsel, right? There, okay, not a damsel technically at that time, free lady, right? No, that's not his response. He's like, oh gosh, that's awkward, and he drops her off at like the nearest nunnery he can find, right? So he was not interested in the lady. He was clearly stirring up trouble. In order to get somebody, he chose the most beautiful lady of the court, thinking that the most accomplished knight of the court, therefore likely, was going to come charging after him, and he could fight him, right? Clearly, that's Palomides' goal as well, but it's much more targeted than that. He knows full well who's going to come riding after him. Who knows better than Palomides, right? Palomides is at least as familiar with this as as King Mark is, right? Palomides has a longer history with Tristram and Isolde than King Mark does, right? So he knows precisely what adventure is going to come to him. In fact, even I think that you can even hear a trace of irony in Palomides' words when he says, "I dow right well abide the adventure," right? It's not an adventure. He knows precisely what he has made a venture, not an adventure, right? He's not taking an adventure. And Isolde goes in for ominous speeches too, right? Not exactly ominous. She is making promises, right? I doubt not I shall be worshipfully rescued from thee, right? I'm not worried to go with you because I'm going to be home pretty soon because somebody's going to come along and mop the floor with you, right? As for that, be as hit be my. Now, Veronica brings up the point, of course, remember Palomides had his oath. Palomides had his oath, right? Tristram made him swear not to aspire after the love of La Belle Isolde again. However, Veronica, is he breaking his oath? See, therein lies the cunning of Sir Palomides' plan. He's not broken his oath. Is he wooing Isolde? Right? Has he expressed an iota of love for her? No, he is still abiding by the oath that he made to Sir Tristram, right? So, again, it's a touchy situation. Palomides clearly wants a rematch. He is obviously spoiling for a rematch with Sir Tristram. So why doesn't he just come in and challenge Sir Tristram? Because it's kind of a jerk move, right? Same with Sir Blaberus. If Sir Blaberus comes into the court and is like, "Hey, are any of you knights competent in here? Whoever's most competent, could you come forward? I want to beat you out. Let's fight." Right? I mean, you can do that. You can go in and challenge knights, but it's kind of a jerk move. Like the really good knights don't act that way. But you can kind of get around it just being aggressive and going out. And I mean, it's not like you need an excuse, right? Like a really good excuse, like I'm guarding this ford and you want to cross this ford, so let's fight to the death. Like that's a good excuse. Whereas like, hey, I'm feeling belligerent, so I want to fight you. Like I'm riding into your court and saying for absolutely no reason out of the blue, let's fight. Palomides has nothing to complain of. I said at the time that I thought that Tristram's treatment of him was kind of harsh, especially the swearing, making him swear to bear no arms for a year and a day. And the whole like stop loving Isolde is hard. I mean, it's tricky, but whatever. Tristram kind of won, so I guess he can do that. But it was a little harsh, right? But yet not so harsh that Palomides has like lawful reason for a grudge match, right? This is not a like you killed my brother kind of situation where he can come back and say like I am here to, he can't accuse Sir Tristram of, treason or of treacherous deeds of any kind, or acting in unknightly fashion or murder or anything. I mean, he's got nothing to accuse him of. If he wanted to appeal him, right? If he wanted to come in and say, you are no good so-and-so, right? And you've done these horrible things and I'm going to prove it on your body. That's totally fine, right? Completely justified. But again, good guys don't just waltz into other people's courts and say like, okay, bring it. Let's do this now for no obvious or justifiable reason. So he creates a situation, and it's a situation which is really, it's clever and it's pointed, right? You told me I can't love Isolde. Well, I'm not loving her, right? I haven't expressed, but I'm riding off with her, right? I've created a situation where I'm taking Isolde away from you, right? And you've got to come get her back. Now you have to be the aggressor, right? And take her back from me. It's brilliant. He's not broken his oath. He's not broken his oath, and yet Tristram knows, like, he's kind of, it's not even exactly breaking the spirit of the oath. But certainly the message is going to be pretty clear, I think. And Michelle, I totally agree with you. Both Mark and Palomides are using Isolde here. she's absolutely the instrument of both of their plans. Um, uh, and Michelle, I think you're right. Again, low cunning, right? For King Mark. Michelle points out it's not just that King Mark thinks that he's safe letting his queen go because he knows Tristram is going to get her back. So, you know, it's a pretty low risk thing for him to be, oh yeah, okay, fine, whatever, take Isolde away, she'll be back tomorrow, I know, because Tristram's going to come riding in and rescue her. But Michelle, I think, is absolutely right to point out, hey, Sir Palomides has a pretty good reputation, right? I mean, he's top 5, so maybe he'll win. Oh, double bonus, right? I mean, to lose my wife but get Sir Tristram killed, okay, you know, would Mark be willing to pay that? I think Mark would be willing to pay that, right? So for King Mark, Michelle, I think as you're implying that this is a win-win situation, right? King Mark is like, this is beautiful. Now I've got this situation where one of two things is going to happen, right? Either Tristram is going to bring her back and then no harm done and everybody saves face, and you know, and this guy who insulted me gets what's coming to him, or Sir Tristram dies. Bonus, right? So absolutely. Um, yeah. And Carita, it does seem, I agree with, now one thing that's a little bit less clear at this point, we don't know what Palomides is thinking and feeling, right? Does Palomides still love La Belle Isolde? I suspect he does, but that's not the issue here. And it's certainly not, I think, the primary thing in Palomides' mind. Though again, notice how Palomides has also created something like a win-win situation. If Tristram beats him, it's not a win situation, right? So, I mean, he can lose. Unlike Mark, he can lose. However, it's I guess it's not exactly a win-win situation for Palomides as it is double or nothing, right? He either gets his revenge on Tristram and to keep Isolde, right? Because if he wins, right, he's got Isolde, right, and she's got to stay with him. So he's like, hey, so now like I'm off, you know, me and my love, whom I'm not officially supposed to love, but you know, I kind of maybe do in secret. And anyway, so now we're going to go off and it's going to be awesome. Field trip, right? Road trip with my love who doesn't love me back, but that's okay. And at least, you know, give me lots of time to try to talk her around. And I defeat my arch rival, right? Or I lose everything. But anyway, you know, it was still well played, right? The whole thing, the best opportunity he's going to have to make all of his dreams come true, right? And to win back all of the you know, to recover from the shame that he suffered when Tristram defeated him. Dollar Stroke, I agree. It was like winning the rash vow lottery. It really was. Finding Brangwine tied to a tree is like the best thing that ever happened to Sir Palomides, right? Yeah. Now, Rachel, but I don't want to lose the point that you were making before, right? That Isolde, all the men around her, Rachel says, seem to be obsessed with Sir Tristram rather than with her. Yeah. You know, Rachel, in some ways, I don't know. I'm not sure that Sir Palomides doesn't actually doesn't actually sort of love her even better than most of the rest of the boys here. But anyway, but nevertheless, it's certainly true that he is using her also. So yeah. Okay. So you're right, Zach. There's love potion for that. All he needs is to find, you know, somebody who can pull a little nigromancy and make up a love potion for him, and then he'd be all set, right? Should everything pan out. Sadly, of course, it's not actually going to pan out for him, but it's a great plan. Okay, so let's see how the plan proceeds. So Palomides meets a series of other knights, right? So first we've got Tristram's off, right? Because Tristram's hunting. Let's not forget, remember, Sir Tristram is he like invented hunting, right? So he hunts. That's what he does. Like if he's not, I mean, okay, he has actually, I guess, quite a spectrum of activities, right? If he's not harping or beating up other people or committing adultery, then he's hunting, right? So, okay, I guess four things. So he divides his time. Well, he's got a busy social calendar, but he's hunting a lot, right? So he's off hunting when Sir Palomides shows up. So it's sort of a little bit awkward. So Sir Lambegus, who is his one of Sir Tristram's, like junior assistants there in the court, goes exactly, Josiah. Among the activities that Sir Tristram pursues are such diverse elements as, yes. Anyway, so okay, so Sir Lambegus comes after Sir Palomides, and Palomides practically almost kills him, right? And then, but during the fight, Isoude runs away, right? So okay, so Thon and Thon they hurtled together, and all to brast their spears, and then they pulled out their sweards and hewed on their helmets and hauberks. And at the last Sir Palomides gave Sir Lambegus such a wound that he fell down like a dead man to the earth. Then he looked after La Belle Isoude, and then she was gone, he wist not where. Oh, where did you, he left his lady right there, and he turns around and she's gone. Weet you well that Sir Palomides was never so heavy. So the queen ran into the forest, and there she found a well, and therein she had thought to have drowned herself. And as good fortune would, there came a knight to her that had a castle there beside, and his name was Sir Adtherp. And when he found the queen in that mischief, he rescued her and brought her to his castle. And when he wist what she was, he armed him and took his horse, and said he would be avenged upon Sir Palomides. Okay, so she is in the middle of, I know it's super, Arthur, I know, right? It's super, super hard not to make jokes about back pain with Sir Lambegus. I mean, it's just, yeah, that's it's really tough. It is, I know. But anyway, I totally hear you there. Anyway, okay, so La Belle Isoude is in the middle of committing suicide, right? I don't think this is just she had thought to have, like she was standing there contemplating suicide, right? The phrasing later on that when Adtherp had found the queen in that mischief, he rescued her, right? She is in mischief, and I think she's like in the water when he comes in. Like she is in mischief. She is in danger of her life, such that him taking her is rescuing. I don't think this is a merely psychological rescuing, right? That he rescues her from the suicidal ideations in which he caught her, right? I don't think that's what's happening here. I think it's a sopping wet, actively suicidal queen that he's bringing back to his nearby castle, only to discover that this is in fact his queen that he has brought back. That's why when he discovers what she was, not just who she was, right, but what she was. Oh, you're the Queen of Cornwall, right? And that guy made off with you from the court, right? And he's had enough of it, right? And he's going to go and be avenged upon Sir Palomides. So things start to go astray with Sir Palomides' grand plan here as soon as La Belle Isoude runs off, which is a fairly plucky piece of initiative on the part of La Belle Isoude. Tarlonia was just talking about how terrible Isoude's life must be. She says her husband married her out of spite. Her love isn't willing to marry her. The one guy who does love her and wants to stick by her, she doesn't love, yet not to mention the fact that he uses and manipulates her and carries her off against her will also. So yeah, no, her situation, not great. And we see here her desire, her plan, even attempt, in fact, to kill herself. Not good. So Adtherp goes after Palomides, and Palomides defeats him too, because Palomides is a great knight. Palomides. But remember, she's been taken to his castle. So Palomides defeats Adtherp and comes to the castle. But now, once again, showing a certain degree of pluck, Isoude slams the gates of the castle against him, right? So Isolde holds the castle against Sir Palomides, and Palomides sits there in the gate of the castle, just like thinking over his life and trying to figure out how this went wrong, right? He's sitting there like, oh my gosh, I won the Rash Vow lottery. Everything was all set, and now, like, now what's happening here? He sits as one astonished, like he's stunned. He can't even say anything, right? And then this is how Tristram finds him. So Tristram finds him in this moment of weakness and comes up and challenges him. And therewithal Sir Palomides arose stilly, without any wardes, and got his horse anon, and saddled him, and bridled him, and lichtly he leap upon him, and got his spear in his hand, and either feutered their spears, and hurled fast togethers, and anon Sir Tristram smote down Sir Palomides over his horse tile. Then lichtly Sir Palomides put his shield before him, and drew his sword, and he surely must now be thinking, here we go again. This is just how this happened the last time when I lost. And there began strong battile on both parties, for both they fought for the love of own laddie. Pretty clear. Palomides in his secret heart has not in fact repented of his love. How can he? And ever she lie on the walls, and beheld them. I don't think she's literally lying down. She's not reclining, I think, on the walls. But she's up on the walls and she's watching them. Right, and beheld them how they fought out of measure, and either were wounded passing sore, but Sir Palomides was much sorer wounded. For they fought thus tracing and traversing more than 12 hours, that well nigh for dole and sorrow la belle Isolde soned, and sighed, alas, that on I loved, and yet do, and the other I love not, that they should fight. And yet it were great pity that I should see Sir Palomides slain, for well I know, by that the end be done, Sir Palomides is but a dead man, because that he is not christened, and I would be loth he should die a Saracen. And therewithal she calmed down, and besought him for her love to fight no more. Now, this, of course, is a very serious concern. She has great pity for Palomides, not because she loves him, not because he's kind of growing on her, because he's not, right? You know, she hates to see these two fighting, even though she's like, notice how she sets this up almost like, oh, these two that I love, oh, that they should fight each other, except that's not what she says, right? She's like, this one that I loved and yet do love, which is an interesting construction, and the other I don't love, that they should fight. So, okay, why is it alas that the one that you love and the one that you don't love should fight? Like, don't you have a clear rooting interest when the one that you love and the one that you don't love fight each other? But anyway, her problem is not that she doesn't want Tristram to win or that she's not really confident in who she's rooting for. No, her problem is that she doesn't want to see Sir Palomides slain, and she knows Tristram's going to kill him. So, and this, of course, is this is a huge issue, right? Sir Palomides is still a Saracen. He is not christened, right? So, and as he is not a Christian, he's not been baptized. If he dies, he will certainly go to hell. And that is what she does not want to have on her conscience, which she doesn't want to see happen to Palomides. She doesn't want to see Sir Palomides slain, not because she likes him, because she is not really into him, but because she does not want to have his eternal soul on her conscience. Remember, he was offering to become christened for her sake. Remember that? When he was professing his love for her back in Ireland, he was going to convert to Catholicism in order to marry her. And she said no, right? Or kind of said no, didn't fully get a chance, I guess, to respond before Tristram beat him up and made him promise to go away. But she seemed to be wholly behind that maneuver. but she doesn't want him to die a Saracen. Now let's see. Dollar Stroke is asking about the syntax. Let's see. That one I love it and yet do, and the other I love not, that they should ficht. Yeah, Lee points out that construction, the one I loved and yet do, suggests that her original love has not continued totally uninterrupted and unchallenged. Yeah, I mean, it may just be a kind of an elaborate way to say the one that I love and have always loved. Conceivably, it could mean that, right? I mean, in a sense, that seems to be what it means. But Lee, I agree. It does seem like that would be a good way to read it. That her love has weathered a great challenge and survived in new form. Yeah, Lee, I wonder if this has to do with the love potion. Is this supposed to be a reference to the love potion? I loved him before when he was Tramtrist, right? And I thought he was just this really cute harper, and then I, discovered that he was the enemy of my family. But then, and I kind of made that offer and said I wouldn't marry anybody else, and then, kind of inviting him, and then my dad was kind of leaning on him, and then he was like, no, I want you to marry my uncle, and she was like, okay, fine, I guess we're going there. And then but then love potion, right? So certainly there has been irregularities, right, in their relationship. Lee, one of the hard things I find with this is that description, that is, I used to love you and now I also love you again, essentially, right, seems much more clearly true of Tristram, right? I mean, he like had the whole fling with Sir Segwarides, his wife, in the interim, right? But it's one of the reasons why it's tempting to read this as kind of reflecting that, in a sense, right? We were together, then we weren't, now we are again. Certainly, I think is at least a potential reading of that passage. All right, let's keep going. So Sir Palomides, he's spared, right? So he's spared, but his scheme didn't work out and he ended up losing. So double or nothing, and he ends up with nothing. The story of Sir Palomides in a nutshell. The tragic story of Sir Palomides. Don't worry, there's going to be much more Sir Palomides. Okay, now we go back to Cornwall, and now we have the active intrigue. This is another one of those examples of what I was discussing last week, those work with me on this because it's going to be important later. That we're laying the blueprints for how tragedy of this kind happens, right? Why is it that, well, let's read the passage first. Van Sir Tristram is let fetch home Sir Lambegus, his knecht, from the forester's house, and it was long or he was whole, but so at the last he recovered. Whew, I know I was worried about Sir Lambegus. And thus they lived with joy and play a long while. That might be referring to Sir Lambegus and Sir Tristram, who doubtless did have a great time together, but I assume that it means Tristram and Isolde, actually, as well. But anyway, whatever. Okay, but ever Sir Andret, that was nigh cousin unto Sir Tristramus, lie in a watch to wait betwixt Sir Tristramus and La Belle Isolde for to take him and devour him. So upon a day, Sir Tristramus talked with La Belle Isolde in a window, and that espied Sir Andret and told the king. Then King Mark took a sword in his hand and came to Sir Tristramus and called him false traitor and would have stricken him, but Sir Tristramus was nigh him and ran under his sword and took it out of his hand. And then the king cried, "Where are me knechtes and me men? I charge you, slay this traitor." But at that time there was not one that would move for his wardes. Yeah, I bet there wasn't. Yeah, attack Sir Tristram, everybody. Oh, Okay, King Mark, sounds like a plan. When Sir Tristram saw there was none that would be against him, he shook his sword to the king, and mad countenance as he would have stricken him. And then King Mark fled, and Sir Tristram followed him, and smote him 5 or 6 strokes flatling in the neck, that he made him fall on the nose. High comedy here, right? This is, I think, the most ignominious moment for King Mark, right? So let's take one thing at a time. Let's start with Sir Andret. Okay, Sir Andret is nigh cousin to Sir Tristram. Why does he have it out for Tristram? We have no idea. We're told that his goal, Sir Andret's purpose here, is to take Tristram and devour him. Presumably not literally, but he wants to take down Tristram. Is this envy? Is this, some kind of weird malice? I mean, did Tristram embarrass him at the family picnic, when they were kids? I don't know what Andret's deal is. And we're not given any indication. Notice there is no hint about whether or not Andret is, like, what his motivation is, apart from malice against Tristram. It's like pure malice, apparently, against Tristram. Like, that is to say, we don't get any indication of, like, patriotism. Like, I can't stand to sit by and watch, Sir Tristram, my cousin, make a fool out of our monarch, right? And, spit in the eye of all faithful, Cornish folks. Like, that would be a reason, right? That would be something. We're not given that, right? Leah's wondering if devouring Tristram's might involve taking his goods, lands, or inheritance. It absolutely could mean that. It could be simple greed, I suppose, that he wants to, he could be heir to Tristram, right? So if he can get Tristram executed, then he'll inherit Tristram's lands. Possibly. Tristram is a king's son, let's not forget, right? And I don't know for sure, Zach, if this means that Andret is related to Mark II. I can't remember from the sources which side I think he is connected to King Mark. Of course, if he's connected to King Mark, he wouldn't then be heir to Tristram's kingship, which is from his father's side, the side that's not connected to King Mark. But I don't know. I'm not really. Again, we just get one word to try to guess what this means. Notice one clear thing, though. If there's one thing that we can see very clearly, it is Malory does not care what Andret's motivation is, right? He has taken no pains at all to explain why Andret is doing what he's doing. So in as much as we invest effort trying to figure out, like, what's Andret's problem? Like let's put Sir Andret, on the psychoanalyst's couch and try to figure out what his issues are. That's totally us, right? We're not uncovering, a sort of an essential element of the story. We're trying to please ourselves, essentially. Malory not showing the least bit of interest in that question. Now, where he captures them is in, and Tarlonio, I have to agree with you, the quite shocking, indeed disturbing act of talking to her in a window. Now, how are we supposed to react to this? I cannot help but think that, I mean, look, this is not exactly catching them in flagrante, right? I mean, like that, ideally, if you're laying a trap of this kind and you want to get Tristram executed for treason, you want to catch them naked in bed together. That's really kind of the smoking gun, So I do think that one reaction that we're supposed to have here is that this is weak, right? This is weak evidence. Um, this is not, I think, this is not a shocking offense. However, I don't think it's totally arbitrary either. This is not like a completely fabricated case either, right? Tristram isn't just being framed for something. Um, can anybody explain this? The window, talking at the window. Why would that even be? I forget big deal, a deal of any kind, right? Why would this be any kind of deal? That he catches them talking at a window. Why is everyone's response not so what? Anybody have any idea? Mighty Felix is suggesting maybe they were talking about something treasonous. I kind of like that idea, right? Like seditious intentions, right? It's not the situation. It's the fact that they were like, saying seditious things about Mark. I find that kind of appealing, especially if it was imagining Isolde, saying seditious things is particularly sort of fun. But Veronica and Stephen, yeah, I think that's got to be the answer. This is her bedroom window, right? This is her private chamber, the Queen's private chamber. This is kind of a big deal, right? So if he is, let's see, what is the exact phrase there? He talked with La Belle Isolde in a window. Presumably, I don't think this is like she's on the third story and he's down in the garden and calling up to her and she's like, hi. I don't think that's what's happening here. I think this is a ground level window. And I think that he is talking to her in the window, like he's leaning portions of his person in the window and having conversation with her, which could possibly be scanned. But in any case, like he is even only some, right? Even if only like the top part of him is coming into her private chamber. And you can't do that. Like that's, her chamber, her bedroom is kind of sacrosanct. Another guy she's not allowed to have another guy in there. So now, like I said, I do think that this is still, it's not quite a technicality. I mean, there's a little bit of juice there, but it's again, this is not the smoking gun, right? This is not really a hanging offense. It could be a scandal potentially, right, under other circumstances, but not exactly a hanging offense. So I think that what we have here is Andret is again, obviously Andret is looking for an excuse, and King Mark is ready to seize any excuse that he's given, right? And I think also we can hear in that because there are two reasons, right? Why nobody else in the court is eager to go and attack Sir Tristram here, right? Remember, first, yes, of course, he's the second best knight in the world, so that's a good reason by itself not to go and attack him. But also remember the other thing that everybody cares about a great deal, right? Is who is in the right in a particular quarrel. And I think they are in some doubt here, right? Was he actually committing treason? Is he a traitor? He's been accused of treason by the king here, but is he guilty actually? Right? Because if we're going to attack the second best knight in the world and we're in the wrong, we are so hosed, like it is not even funny, right? I mean, you might as well be, a red shirt on an away mission if that's your plan, right? So it is no wonder that no Cornish knight in the court wants to have anything to do with this. So King Mark takes matters into his own hand, and I love the description. Notice the detailed swordplay description, how King Mark hacks down at him, and Sir Tristram comes in under his guard and neatly disarms him. Then Sir Tristram
I'm sure was not lost on many of you, pulls a Turin right, and chases him around with the chases him around with the flat of the blade in order to humiliate, deliberately it seems, in order to humiliate him. Um, and that's Blue Wizard. I think is it. I believe it's in regard to this that you were saying you definitely can't imagine Lancelot acting in this way. Um, yeah, I can't imagine Sir Lancelot doing that either. Um, does King Mark deserve it? Yeah. Is it satisfying to see him take 5 or 6 strokes flatling in the neck and falling on his nose? Yeah, I couldn't happen to a nicer guy, but um, it's a little questionable the way that Tristram acts here. I think, no question. Um, a later incident, tournament, and notice how again we have now this is an interesting one because this is another scene where Sir Tristram is being made directly parallel to Lancelot, but this time the situation is one that we have already seen. So instead of setting up later scenes with Sir Lancelot that I keep telling you, like I'm drawing attention to these scenes because I'm telling you like this stuff is hang on to this stuff because it's going to be relevant later on, right? Here's one which is relevant to one that we've already seen, right? The situation, King Mark is, on one side of a tournament, and there's another knight on the other side who's doing great, right? Who's having himself a day. Sir Lamorak in this case, instead of Sir Gareth, like the Sir Lancelot situation. And the king, who's just thinking of winning, tells his champion, Sir Tristram in this case, go take down Sir Lamorak, right? Just as King Arthur asked Lancelot to take down Sir Gareth. Sir, sighed Sir Tristramus, meseemeth it were no worship for a nobleman to have ado with him, and for this cause, for at this time he hath done overmuch for ony mean knight living. And as meseemeth, sighed Sir Tristramus, it were shame to tempt him any more, for his horse is weary, and himself both, for the deeds of armies he hath done this day. Well considered, it were enow for Sir Lancelot du Lac. I mean, that's how well Sir Lamorak has done this day. As for that, sighed King Mark, I require you, as ye love me and my laddie the Queen La Belle Isoude, tak your armies and just with Sir Lamorak de Galis. That's dirty pool, right? I mean, clearly, I require you as you love me and my lady the Queen La Belle Isoude. So he knows Tristram. Tristram can't refuse to do things in the name of his lady, right? He's just explained, much like, in fact, with much the same rationale, though less fullness, than Lancelot did. Tristram has just explained exactly this. Tristram has the same impulse as Lancelot, right? No, I'm not going to do that. That'd be horrible, right? Let him have his day. And Mark insists, like Arthur didn't insist, right? But Mark does insist and invokes the name of his lady, his own wife, right, to for him to go after him. Sir, sighed Sir Tristramus, ye bid me do a thing that is against knichthood, and well I can think that I shall give him a fall, for it is no mastery, for my horse and I be fresh, and so is not his horse and he. And weet you well that he will tak it for a great unkindness, for ever own good knicht is loth to tak another at avantage. But because I will not displease as ye require me, so I must do, and obey your commandment. Tristram says, you require me to do it. I've got no choice, right? He does it under protest, right? He's going to take this for great unkindness. This is not going to turn out well. Of course I'm going to beat him. That's no great mastery, right? I'm fresh and so is my horse, and he and his horse are all tuckered out. Of course I'm going to win, right? What does that prove? And he's going to be pretty mad because he knows that I'm taking unfair advantage of this. So you're making me look bad, you're making him upset, and but you require me to do it. Remember, Lancelot, under the same circumstances, flatly refused. Now, Arthur didn't push him the same way that Mark does. So both Lancelot was more resolute than Tristram, and Arthur was less unkind, less resolute in his rash and unknightly impulse, right? Sort of in Arthur's case, it seems sort of over competitive, right? But Tristram, though he does it under protest, he does it. Notice one of the effects of this here, right? We see Tristram and Lancelot are, in one sense, almost two peas in a pod, right? Similar values, mostly. A similar sense of, nobility and what is due to knighthood. They're, Tristram is a good guy, much like Lancelot, but not quite as good. Lancelot's not willing to compromise. He won't do it, even when Arthur asks him. Tristram says all the right things, but does the wrong thing anyway. Now, again, it's easy to blame Tristram for this. He's in a tight place. His king has required him, right? And required him in the name of the lady that he loves. So it's again, unquestionably a tight place for Sir Tristram to be in, but it's hard to not come away from this thinking he didn't quite, A minus Tristram, A minus. Lancelot, I think, would have aced that one, and you got an A minus. Sir Lamorak takes it amiss. He's pretty mad, right? Gets knocked off his horse, demands that Sir Tristram dismount and fight him on foot, and Tristram refuses, right? No. He's like, this is his compromise. Tristram's compromise, right? I'll knock him off his horse, which, of course, I'm going to knock him off his horse, but I'm not going to fight him on foot. I'm going to refuse to fight him on foot. And he tries to tell him nice things, right? He's like, oh, no, see, I'm sorry. It wasn't my idea. And I don't want to beat you, right? So, which, of course, is kind of insulting to Sir Lamorak, right? He was like, I don't want to, just come down there and embarrass you, right? Come on, who wants me to embarrass you, right? You don't want me to embarrass you, do you? So, I mean, which is, of course, insulting. So Sir Lamorak is not pleased by Tristram's refusal anymore, than he was pleased by the being knocked off his horse in the first place. But Lamorak's response is not good. Not good. So he departed from him, that's Lamorak is departing, with Sir Driant. And by the way, they met with a knight that was sent fro Dame Morgan le Fay unto King Arthur. And this knight had a fire horn harnessed with gold, and the horn had such a virtue that there might no laddie nother gentlewoman drink of that horn, but if she were true to her husband, and if she were false, she should spill all the drink. Okay. And if she were true to her lord, she might drink thereof peaceably. And because of the Queen Guinevere, and in the despite of Sir Lancelot, this horn was sent unto King Arthur. And so by force Sir Lamorak mad that knight to tell all the cows why he bare the horn, and so he told him all whole. No shalt thou bear this horn, sighed Sir Lamorak, unto King Mark, other chose to die. For in the despite of Sir Tristram thou shalt bear hit him that horn, and say that I sent it him for to assay his laddie, and if she be true, he shall prove her. So this knight went his way unto King Mark, and broked him that rich horn, and said that Sir Lamorak sent it him, and so he told him the virtue of that horn. Then the king mad his queen to drink thereof, and 100 laddies with her. But there were but 4 laddies of all tho that drank clean. Alas, said King Mark, this is a great despite, and swore a great oath that she should be brent, and the other laddies also. Okay. Stephen wants to know, what if she's true but clumsy? It's a bad day to fumble the cup. Yeah. So, he's gonna burn them all at the stake, Stephen. Yeah, he's gonna burn the lot of them. I'm gonna burn all 96 ladies of the court, 97, I guess, including La Belle Isoud. I'm gonna burn them all to death. Yeah, exactly, Mighty Felix. It's a magic adulterous detector. That's precisely what Morgan Le Fay is sending to Arthur's court here. Now, notice this sort of cunning thing. Yeah, and I see that Dolorous Stroke and Tarlonio thinking the same thing, right? Make a horn for the men and have them drink. Yeah, that would also presumably be a bit of a problem. However, that isn't the point, right? And that's important, right? The whole point, of course, is she's targeting Guinevere because she wants to prove Guinevere untrue. So it's not about the men because she doesn't have to prove the men unfaithful. Anyway, okay. So what Lamorak does is mean, right? Notice the situation that Mark is in. Mark has this horn sent to him. What's he going to do? He can't not have them. I mean, it's been presented publicly before the court, right? Here's this horn that if any wife drinks out of it and is not true to her lord, then, the wine will dribble all over her. Yeah. He can't refuse, right? King Mark can't just refuse, because to do so would basically be to say, like, well, I know my wife is not faithful to me, but I don't want that publicly proven, right? And yet it is publicly proven, and he knows it's going to be publicly proven. So the making of it public is just embarrassing for everybody involved, right? So yeah. This is notice the one other factor here is that this is another situation which is trying to maneuver its clear and objective, right, evidence about the affair of Tristram and Isolde. One thing to keep in mind here, and this is another thing that was emphasized, or I think comes into question at the whole talking to her through the window scene. Remember, I was saying before anyway, with Lancelot and Guinevere, the love between the queen and the knight who is not her husband is totally okay up to a certain point, right? And that certain point is they can't sleep together. That's it. That's the point at which it becomes not a big deal, or when it ceases to be not a big deal is what I mean to say. So unless they're sleeping together, it's okay. It's okay that everybody knows Tristram is devoted to La Belle Isoud, right? That's not been a secret, right? The only question is, are they sleeping together? And again, remember that whole question about they were talking, he was talking familiarly at her chamber window. That looks bad, but doesn't prove anything. This would seem to prove it, right? Because that is clearly what untrue to her lord means. It doesn't mean, does she love somebody else? It means, is she sleeping with somebody else? Is she chaste? And I use that word chastity because that word is very often misunderstood. Chastity is not the same thing as virginity. If you're unmarried, they're the same thing, right? You are to abstain from sex before marriage, and you are to only have sex with your spouse after marriage. If you are faithful to both of those things, you are chaste. A chaste wife has sex with her husband, right? That's part of chastity, in fact, if you're married, right? Um, so this is a test of chastity. And I think it's pretty clear. It's not about the spirit of the thing. It's not about where your heart is. It's about who you're sleeping with. When people talk about being true to her husband, it means being true to her vows, like her wedding vows, being true to the sacrament of marriage. Because keep in mind, we're still Catholics here, right? Pre-Reformation, marriage is a sacrament. Like the Eucharist, like baptism, marriage is a sacrament. And if you violate that, if you are untrue to that sacrament, it's a big deal. Yeah. Now, Dora Stroke, I agree. Strictly speaking, it only proves that she was unfaithful. Doesn't absolutely implicate Tristram, right? But admittedly, it looks pretty bad. Yeah. Now, Stephen, we know nothing about the four ladies who passed the test, right? There's an obvious joke being made about the fact that 96% of the women who take this test fail, right? And is this a misogynist joke? Yeah, this is a misogynistic joke, but I don't think, I could be wrong, but I don't think it's purely misogyny that is leading to. Remember, Malory there's been this tension between the sort of values of courtly love, sort of traditional courtly love, and this higher morality that Lancelot has been championing, right? We've already seen that tension here in the story. Based on what we've seen with Lancelot's story by itself, it shouldn't surprise us, right? Again, I don't think this is about like, oh, see, look at these loose women all over the place, because I think that you guys are exactly correct to say that the men would fare exactly as badly on this. And I don't get any sense that if that did happen, if Malory were to write a scene where the men were to take this test, would they pass it? Would he have them pass it any better? No, I don't think so. Again, I don't think this is just a joke about how horrible women are. I think it's I think that this is just about how widespread, which we've seen, right? How widespread the culture of this sort of adulterous love, how normal that is in this society, right? Remember the reaction, right? King Mark is like, let's execute, right? Or excuse me, let's excuss everybody, right? All 96 of the ladies of the court. And Carita, you're right, we don't really have that many replacement ladies hanging about. This does seem a hasty resolve on his part. Like, what's going to happen to the next? Like, is the nobility of Cornwall going to go extinct in a generation after this? Yeah. Tolonio, I agree. In this society, everyone's probably looking at the four ladies who passed the test and being like, dude, what is wrong with you? You're such a loser. No, that's probably true, actually. But anyway, the response to this is, so when Mark says, I'm going to execute you all, like, technically, like, okay, like they've all been like convicted, I guess, of committing adultery. If that was a fair trial, they've all been convicted. It's kind of in his power to have them all executed, especially Isolde, because her committing adultery is treason, no, like political treason, no two ways about that. But nobody's down with this, right? You got like 95 other, cuckolded husbands in the room, and they're all like, yeah, no, this is not okay. Let's not murder everybody. Like, that's not a good solution to this. And notice also, somebody has the brains to point something out. Hey, maybe this is not an objective test. You know, this is a magical item enchanted by Morgan Le Fay and sent to King Arthur's court. Um, Obviously with the design of getting Guinevere into trouble and fomenting serious difficulties in King Arthur's court, right? Do we have any reason to believe that this is objectively true, right? Does this actually prove anything? They're like, we know Morgan Le Fay is a wicked sorceress who goes out of her way to destroy people for fun, right? So why would we take essentially her testimony by itself as like, convicting evidence against everybody? So it kind of gets thrown out. Yeah, Dolores Stroke says, we're kind of making execution decisions based on a drinking utensil here. Yeah, and a drinking utensil sent to the court by a known wicked sorceress. Yeah, Stephen says, if you can't trust wicked sorceresses, who can you trust? Yeah. James, I mean, we're not told enough details about the scene. James Stevens is wondering, did anybody other than Mark know the powers of the cup, or was this, was this done like blind, right? Or did they know what it meant? We're not told that exactly. The details seem kind of public. I don't know if he confronted them with it after the fact or whatever, but anyway, yeah. So there are several reasons why, that reason alone is a good reason to kind of throw out the evidence of the magic chastity horn, possibly cursed, malicious chastity horn, which might not, in fact, do what it's actually claims to do. But at the same time, I don't actually disbelieve it. Again, because it seems to be, I don't think that she's claimed it's a magic chastity horn, and in fact it's just a magic, let's make 96% of women who drink out of it dribble wine all over themselves so that they get in trouble. It could be like, if that would be a method, right, for Morgan Le Fay. But I actually don't really kind of suspect that, and part of me thinks that what we're seeing here is people saying like, dude, like, King Mark, get a grip, right? Yeah, okay, they're committing adultery, like, it happens, right? Like, get with the culture, man. Like, where have you been? Seems to be, I mean, again, 95 other cuckolded husbands seem to be, 95 out of 96 cuckolded husbands seem to have no serious problem with the adultery of their wives. Yeah, so anyway, it's an interesting moment. Think back for a second, though, to Lancelot and Guinevere. One of the things that this shows clearly is there is doubt what side of the fence Lancelot and Guinevere are playing on, right? Are they doing the safe and appropriate love thing, or have they crossed the line? Is their love pure love, or have they crossed the line and are they, doing the inappropriate, right? And Morgan Le Fay is pushing on that. Remember the malice of Andret, right? Just somebody who is seeking to uncover in order to bring down Tristram, right? Morgan Le Fay we know to be trying to bring down Arthur and everybody, right? But that, like, there are those who are malicious who are trying to find evidence to prove that it has crossed the line. We can see, although it's happening in the background, although it's sort of off stage, right? We can see that it's definitely one of the issues, right? It's definitely on the table with Lancelot and Guinevere there. Stephen Cover points out most of the husbands are okay with it because, well, who do you think the other guy's wives are cheating with? Yeah, exactly. That seems pretty fair. Uh, okay. Then, in an unexpected turn, Tristram and Isolde get married. So remember, Tristram gets wounded and can't get healed, so he has to go and get healed somewhere else. Does that sound familiar? And so he goes to the court of this foreign king who has a daughter named Isolde, who's a really good surgeon and heals his. Stop me if you've heard this before. Who can heal his wounds, right? And she, in healing his wounds, falls in love with him because he's a great knight and a hunk and plays the harp. Okay, so by the great means of the king and his son, there grew great love betwixt Isolde and Sir Tristramus, for that laddie was both good and fair, and a woman of noble blood and fame. And for because that Sir Tristramus had such cheer and riches and all other pleasance that he had almost forsaken la belle Isolde. And so upon a time Sir Tristramus agreed to wed this Isolde la Blanche Maines. And so at the last they were wedded and solemnly held their marriage. And so when they were abed both, Sir Tristramus remembered him of his old laddie, La Belle Isolde. Talk about the 11th hour, right? And then he took such a thought suddenly that he was all dismayed, and other cheer mad he none but with clipping and kissing. And for other fleshly lustes, Sir Tristramus had never ado with her. Such mention maketh the French book. The French book is explicit on this point. Also, it maketh mention that the laddie went there had been no pleasure but kissing and clipping. Okay. Okay. So um so well, it's not now, Karita. Karita's saying she'd be really furious if she had married this guy and then he was like, "Oh, I just realized I'm still into my ex, so no sex for you. Sorry." But Karita, that's assuming you know that sex exists, right? Isolde LeBlanche Mines is really innocent, right? So he does clip her and kiss her, right? There's hugging and smooching involved, right? And so she thinks they've consummated their marriage because she's never clipped and kissed anybody before. So she thinks that kissing is as good as it gets, right? The French book, Karita, is very explicit on this point, right? Not La Belle Isolde. She knows all. She knows about the birds and the bees. But nobody had this talk, right? So Isolde La Blanche Mans never took high school health class, so she doesn't know anything about this. She wasn't made to watch that film, and so she thinks that she has consummated her marriage with her husband with the kissing and the clipping, right? So Tristram manfully restrains himself on their wedding night in his marriage bed with his now lawful wife, except notice the loophole. Here's a fun trivia question. Does Sir Tristram marry Isolde La Blanche Mines? Technically, no, he does not. Their marriage is not consummated. And just ask Henry VIII if that matters, right? Yes, it does. So it's not a. There's a reason why the fathers of the bride and groom, in the cases of royal marriages especially, would usually spectate on the wedding night, with or without popcorn, but they would watch it happen, right? So that somebody could not claim later on that the marriage was not consummated, right? Um, uh, So, um, yeah, I'm telling you. Oh boy, yes, the bedding ceremony, exactly, Veronica. It's a big deal. Um, so, as active as Isolde Leblanchemain's um, uh, uh, dad was in uh, bringing about love between them, I mean, obviously, he was totally into this marriage concept, right? Um, he drops the ball at the end of the day, right, on the whole consummation thing. Um, uh, yeah, yeah. I know, Karita, right? Totally a thing to add to your list of reasons I'm kind of glad I didn't live in the Middle Ages. Yeah, yeah, um, yeah, yeah, exactly. So anyway, right. It's not, by the way, it's not that didn't happen with everybody. Like it wasn't totally normal for to like sit in the room and watch. You'd sit outside the door and listen. Seriously, I'm not so not joking. It was all good fun. Um, anyway, so I'm not sure what to do with this. The consummation thing. I mean, is Malory trying to get Tristram off on a technicality here? Right? Like, is he unfaithful to La Belle Isotte? Almost, but not quite. Boy, like, he comes right up to the edge of the cliff, but then, oh, in the nick of time, he backs off into the safety of his quiet and contented adultery. Um, yeah, yeah. Karita, I think that's perfectly fair. Karita says, women talk to each other. She's not sure that Sir Thomas Malory is really aware of the kinds of things that would actually, the kinds of conversations that would be going on in the court of ladies here. It sounds to me like Isolde Leblanchemains has lived a fairly sheltered life down there in Brittany. Yeah, yeah. Anyway, yeah. So, and I know, if you're trying to support Sir Tristram in his, know, ups and in the vicissitudes of his career here, and if you had gotten as far as forgiving him for the whole Sir Sigwarides' wife moment, this is kind of tough, right? A little hard to um, continue to reserve Sir Tristram's bronze bust in the Hall of Fame of Lovers, right? When he not only, as soon as he returns back to Cornwall, starts jaunting off with his other knight's wife, but then while he is still in the midst of his tragical adulterous affair with La Belle Isotte, he goes off and marries somebody else. Now, again, this is another technicality, right? In the sense that not only does he technically not marry her, also, of course, marriage. I mean, she's married. La Belle Isotte is married, right? That doesn't make her unfaithful. So, being married is okay, except this is clearly unfaithfulness on his part, right? And the principles are in no doubts about that. Now, Karita, that's a perfectly fair question. Um, uh, does he does he have to wreck the lives of all the women? Uh, yeah, I can't defend Sir Tristram. I just can't. There's really not much to say, Karita, in his defense here. I have to admit. Um, uh, yeah, yeah, he is not doing any favors to Isolde Leblanchemains here. No two ways about that. Yeah. Apart from just kind of making a fool of her, um, it's not kind. But as I say, we don't need to have our own opinions, to just sort of consider our own opinions, our own reactions to Tristram's, like whether or not he technically gets off the hook on a charge of unfaithfulness to La Belle Isaud. We get some pretty clear indicators from our text here, from commentators, right? And the first that we get is Lancelot. Lancelot hears that Tristram has retired to Brittany and married some other chick named Isaud, and he is pretty unequivocal in his condemnation. Fie upon him, untrue knicht to his laddie, that so noble a knicht as Sir Tristram as is, should be found to his first laddie and love untrue, that is the Queen of Cornwall. But say ye to him thus, said Sir Launcelot, that of all knightes in the world, I have loved him most, and had most joy of him, and all was for his noble deedes. And let him weet that the love between him and me is done for ever, and that I give him warning, from this day forth I will be his mortal enemy. Okay, Lancelot, that's pretty clear. Now, one thing to keep in mind, how long have Lancelot and Tristram known each other? Trick question. They've never met, right? Never have they actually met each other in the flesh before, right? So when Lancelot is talking about that he has loved him most and had most joy of him of all the knights in the world, they've never met, right? When he talks about that, it's like his reputation that he loves, right? Uh, yeah, yeah. It's and all was for his noble deeds, right? He has had joy at just hearing the exploits of Sir Tristram. He's heard a lot of Sir Tristram, right? And he has appreciated everything that he's heard of him, both his prowess in battle, which he, remember, his own kin have fought against him, right? Sir Blamor de Ganys and Sir Bleoberis de Ganys have both fought with Tristram, and know his worth, and then he's heard all of these great stories about things that Tristram has accomplished, even the killing of Sir Marhault, right? Lancelot's not upset about that, even though Sir Marhault was a knight of the Round Table. It was all good, but yeah, so Tristram has lost his reputation as far as Lancelot is concerned. Now, Catriona, that's a perfectly fair criticism. Catriona says, how dare he cheat on his adulterous lover with a lawfully wedded wife of his own? Yeah, I get that. Now, I've been suggesting that Sir Lancelot's morality, right, is contrary to the traditional morality or alternative morality, right, of the courtly love system, right? So everybody else is like 2 thumbs up to adultery, right? No problems there. What we see with Sir Segwarides' wife, pretty mainstream, as we can see from the 96%, right? So mainstream. On the one hand, Catriona, exactly as you suggest, Lancelot does not fully depart from that. Because I agree with you, or at least here's me sort of putting words in your mouth, Catriona, but if Lancelot is basically saying, hey, like, come on, everybody, let's embrace good old traditional sexual morality, right? Stop this loving paramours thing. Let's stop all the adulterous carryings on. Either just like stay unmarried and remain chaste in your virginity, or get married and remain chaste in your marriage. People, come on, how hard is this, right? That's not fully, anyway, Lancelot's point, right? In one sense, he's following the pattern. Notice how open he is about this. That so noble a knight as Sir Tristram is shall be found to his first laddie and love untrue. Now, if you just stopped the sentence there, that would sound fine. he puts a little pressure on it by adding, "That is the Queen of Cornwall." Oh, for him to be untrue to his first lady, you know, his uncle's wife and his queen, right? Oh, yeah, boy, that he should be untrue to the legally wedded spouse of his uncle, who is also his reigning monarch, right? I mean, it makes it, that last clause makes it feel kind of weird, right? And it certainly does show Lancelot's fine with that. But again, remember, so Lancelot's the difference for Lancelot. He's not saying, hey, let's stop the loving, right? Knock it off, right? Remain completely celibate until you get married and then focus entirely on your wife and knock all the rest of this stuff off. That's not Lancelot, right? Of course, how could it be Lancelot? He loves Guinevere, right? But it's fine, right? It's fine because it's okay, right? They're not sleeping together, as he is willing to fight to the death to maintain, as we saw during the book of Sir Lancelot. So Lancelot and Guinevere not sleeping together, so it's fine. I think it's pretty clear from this sentence that Lancelot assumes that Tristram is like him. They've never met. Remember, he's not been to Cornwall, possibly in his life, as far as we know. So Lancelot is seems to be assuming that Tristram and Isolde are following his model, right? But yeah, Sakaya, it does seem that Lancelot hasn't been hearing like from the Endret faction, right? Which is trying to destroy and devour Sir Tristram. So again, Lancelot's alternative sexual morality is not just plain and simple traditional morality. It's like a purified version of the new courtly love morality, right? It is okay for him to love a woman who is not only married to someone else, but is married to Lancelot's own king, right? That's okay for him to be in love and devoted love to his queen, as long as they don't sleep together, right? It's okay. It's good. It's a positive thing, and everyone's okay with it, pretty much, right? Arthur's even okay with it. So Lancelot's morality is, again, it's more of a middle ground than just going to the opposite end of this sort of moral pole. So for Lancelot, him going off and getting married, again, if he were just like a, you know, old-fashioned, you know, Christian sexual values kind of guy, Lancelot, you'd think he'd be all two thumbs up about Sir Tristram going off and finally getting himself lawfully married himself, right? Oh, you found a different unmarried Isolde. Good move, my man, right? That's good. Leave this whole adulterous situation. That was a mess, right? It was a mess waiting to happen. Settle down. You've got a nice wife of your own, and it's fine. And and yes, Karita, explicitly creepy that she has the same name. There is no way around that either. But anyway, right. Okay. But he doesn't say that, right? He is not fine with Tristram going off and getting married. Also not fine with this is La Belle Isolde, of course. And I love this passage. And so in this meanwhile, La Belle Isolde made a letter unto Queen Guinevere, complaining here of the untruth of Sir Tristramus, how he had wedded the king's doctor of Bretagne. So Queen Guinevere sent here another letter, and bade her be of good comfort, for she should have joy after sorrow. For Sir Tristramus was so noble a knight called, that by crafties of sorcery laddies wold mak such noble men to wed them. But the end, Queen Guinevere sighed, should be thus, that he shall hate her and love you better than ever he did. Okay. Okay. So Guinevere blames the other Isolde, right? She has a nice positive spin on this to give to La Belle Isolde, right? I hear such good things about Tristram. I can't believe he is really such a jerk as that, right? This is probably one of those many cases in which good knights are like ensorcelled by those no good sorceresses who just lie in wait for good knights, trying to enchant them into marrying them, right? And before you scoff, remember this happened, right? This happened to Tristram's dad. Remember, that's why Tristram is named Tristram. That's why he was born in the forest and his mom died in childbirth in the middle of the woods, because his dad was captured by sorcery by a woman who loved him and who wanted to get him to love her in return. But he's like, I'm already married and actually I'm kind of happy with my wife and I'm really not into you. And she's like, I shall keep you my prisoner in my sorceress love bower until you submit. Like, that happens. It happened to Lancelot. I mean, it happens to Lancelot on like a daily basis. Remember, this is why he attacks the dude in the pavilion. Remember the pavilion guy? Because he's like, sorry, I have bad experiences with like waking up, in strange beds with strange people, because I assumed it was a sorceress. Yeah, exactly, Dolores Stroke. I mean, hey, exactly. As Dolores Stroke is reminding us, Guinevere could have added like, "Hey, La Belle Isotte, just be thankful that like she didn't kill him and then spend the rest of eternity cuddling his embalmed corpse. It could be worse, right?" So, anyway, yeah, it's now notice she's wrong. She's wrong about Tristram, right? Tristram, like she's like, I can't believe that Tristram would actually just be unfaithful to you. Well, yeah, no, actually he can be, right? In fact, he is. Just as Lancelot was saying, oh, there's no way that Sir Tristram would, I can't, I have a really hard time believing, I heard such great things of him. But again, notice how he was implying he seemed to believe, operating under the impression that Tristram and Isolde were, keeping it above the sheets, right? That they were practicing like the Lancelot's legit adulterous love, or again, pure love, which is only sort of technically adulterous, which was totally not true, right? So uh, Tristram and Isolde were not practicing Lancelot and Guinevere's kind of love. They totally crossed the line. They were absolutely sleeping with each other. We're told that explicitly. So Lancelot was wrong about the two of them. Guinevere is wrong. She thinks Tristram can't possibly be guilty and he must be ensorcelled and it must be all the girl's fault. No, it's not. Right. In fact, she's just cute, innocent, available, and nice, and rich, apparently. So, that's like the complete package, and also named Isolde, so like there's no risk of like him calling her the wrong name while they're clipping and kissing. So that's good. So anyway, like that's it, right? We know that Tristram has in fact been unfaithful to La Belle Isolde in exactly the way that Guinevere thinks that he won't. Both of them, both Guinevere and Lancelot, overestimate both of them, right? They assume that their relationship is purer than it is, and they assume that Tristram is better than he is, right? But the super important thing here, of course, in Guinevere's speech, this is one of those speeches you're going to want to remember, right? So your lover, whom you always believed was faithful to you, has run off with another woman. I'm sure there must be, honey, there must be a logical explanation for this. It's almost certainly not, like because he was actually unfaithful to you. It's probably her fault, right? He was probably ensorcelled. He's probably innocent. Really, no reason to be upset. La Belle Isotte, right? Remember that advice. Yeah, just keep that in mind. Might be relevant later. Okay, we have time for a little bit more. We'll do at least the beginning of the story of the little story of Sir Lamorak that we get. Um, everybody, we're not very good sailors in the Middle Ages. People are always getting wrecked. They're crossing the channel. I mean, that happens. It's going to keep happening for a long time. Crossing the channel is never going to be like super fun and easy. But as you can see, like both Sir Lamorak, like his ship goes down at sea, and he loses everybody but his squire, who dies soon thereafter. So like Sir Lamorak alone, because of his strength as a swimmer, is able to get to the shore alive, or at least mostly alive, before he's then like resuscitated by the fishers, right, who find him. Sir Tristram and his new wife, the one who is not La Belle Isaud, the just kind of cute Isaud, they're also wrecked, right? And so that's what we're getting here. They're in a barget. And there the barget all to rova, and there Dame Isaud was hurt. And as well as they micht, they got into the forest. And there by a well he saw Sir Segwarides, and a damsel with him. And then either saluted other. Sir, said Sir Segwarides, I knew you well for Sir Tristramus de Lyonesse, the man in the world that I have most cows to hat, because ye departed the love between me and my wife. You got to think here, right? That this is this has got to be an awkward conversation. Tristram is standing here with his wife, right? You imagine Tristram being okay, enough ixnay on the yeah, this is awkward. But anyway, okay. Because ye departed the love between me and my wife. But as for that, sighed Sir Segwarides, I will never hot a noble knight for a lich laddie, and therefore I pray you to be my friend, and I will be yours unto my power. For wit you well, ye are hard bestad in this valley, and we shall have no ado either to succour other. Sir Segwarides, right? He's like, no, you're absolutely right, Catriona. Sir Segwarides himself is sitting there with another woman while accusing Tristram of coming between his wife and him. So yeah, now it's a damsel with him, right? So she's just probably one of those adventure guide damsels. She probably works for the same firm of like tourism adventure guides that like the three different aged late damsels, that guided, Ewain, Gawain, and Marhalt around, worked for. But anyway, it's but nevertheless, Catriona, yeah, there's a little it's like, well, I see we've all moved on, since those days, apparently. Karina, I worked so hard not to give that particular subtitle to this slide, but I was, needless to say, extremely tempted. Anyway, so yes, David, light means wanton here. I will never hot a noble knight for a licht laddie. Licht does mean wanton. Absolutely, yes. Light in sexual virtue is what he's referring to here. So he's not going to let a light lady come between him and a noble knight, right? That's so like bygones, right? That's fine. You slept with my wife and we fought about it at the time, and you injured me and you got away with it, and then it was embarrassing later on, and whatever, and then my wife turned away from you, which was embarrassing to you, whatever. Anyway, bygones, right? Let's side together. I'll help you and you help me, because there's a really scary guy who lives around here and he's gonna kick the crap out of both of us. So let's stick together on this. Everybody seems quite willing to get along, including, of course, the next big meeting, which we've been building up to, right? Which is the reunion of Lamorak and Tristram. So they had that awkward encounter at the tournament where Tristram, in unknightly fashion, but at the insistence of King Mark and against his own protests, unseated Lamorak and humiliated him. And then Lamorak's rather, well, not only harsh, but pretty shady revenge that he took, right, with the chastity horn. So this is finally their meeting. And I don't know about you, but like I'm ready for a battle royal, right? I mean, this is going to be like the big, because remember, this is not just, the two knights with a serious grudge each against the other, right? Finally meeting. But they, this is the number 2 and the number 3 knight in the world. I mean, this is a marquee, this is like a pay-per-view event, which looks like it's about to happen here, right? Lamorak begins the conversation. Sir, remember ye not of the fall ye did give me on us, and after that ye refused to feast on foot with me? Sir, says Tristram, that was not for no fear that I had of you. Oh, great start there, Tristram. It's not that I was afraid of you or, like respected you or anything. But me shamed at that time to have more ado with you, for as me seemed you had no ado. But, sir, weet you well, for my kindness, ye put money, for my kindness, sarcasm there, ye put many laddies to a reproof when ye sent the horn from Morgan le Fay unto King Mark, and it should have gone to King Arthur, whereas ye did that in despite of me. Well, said he, and it were to do again, so would I do. For I had laver strife and debate fell in King Mark's court, rather than in King Arthur's court. For the honour of both courtes be not like. Well, that's an understatement. As to that, said Sir Tristramas, I know well. But that was done for despite of me. He's like, don't try to wriggle off the hook on this one, right? Don't try to be like, oh no, I wasn't trying to insult you. I was just trying to protect Arthur's court, right? Yeah. He's like, yeah, whatever, right? That was done for despite of me, right? Let's be honest with each other here, Lamorak. But all your malice, I thank God, hurt not greatly, right? In the end, nobody got brent, so that was fine. Therefore, said Sir Tristramas, ye shall leave all your malice, and so will I, and let us assay how we may win worship between you and me upon this giant Sir Nabon le Noir, that is lord of this island, to destroy him. Sir, said Sir Lamorak, now I understand your connectod. It may not be false that all men say, for of your bounty, noblesse, and worship of all connectes, ye are peerless. And for your courtesy and gentleness, I showed you unkindness, and that now me repenteth. Yeah, Tarlonio, they can all get along, right? So here again, this what looked like it was going to be an epic battle between Tristram and Lamorak, they just make up, right? It's fine. Notice that they Curry was saying the shady revenge of the chastity horn could be a pulp novel. Yeah, Karita, that would have to be a pulp novel with an R-rated cover, like one of those embarrassing covers, I think. Not to mention the fact that that title sounds much worse than it is. But anyway, okay, so, but David, I agree that this is a really good point, isn't it, by Lamorak, right? So, I mean, although he's still kind of dodging the point, yes, he was maliciously targeting Sir Tristram, right? Sir Tristram is totally right to call him on that. But of course, yeah, deflecting it from Arthur's court was a good move anyway. But notice the most important thing here. Lamorak had good reason to be upset, good reason to doubt what Tristram was doing. Tristram treated him in an unknightly fashion. That doesn't justify Lamorak's malicious retaliation, but his doubt of Tristram was understandable. But notice how quick Lamorak is to say, actually, okay, now what? You're right. Now I understand your connectod. It may not be false that all men sigh. You get the sense that Lamorak's been going around saying, everyone's being, oh, Sir Tristram is one of the greatest knights in the world. And he's like, oh, yeah, whatever, right? That guy is a jerk and I can prove it. And now he's like, well, maybe everybody wasn't being false, right? Maybe everybody else was right when they said that you're bountiful, noble, worshipful, courteous, gentle, all these things. For your courtesy and gentleness, I showed you unkindness. So he confesses his own fault there. One of the things that I just kind of love about Sir Lamorak is one of the most humble knights that we see in Malory. Again and again, we see like Sir Lamorak is now again. There's he had a moment there, right, with the chastity horn. There's no defending him on that, as he himself confesses, like, that was wrong of me, right? I treated you unkindly. But nevertheless, he is humble. He is not watch the number of times that Sir Lamorak does not like have ego investment. Even later on in this island, right? Here's the number 2 and the number 3 knight in the world, right? And they're both on this island with like the black giant, Sir Nabon Le Noir, right? He's the black knight / giant who is, just like kills all the knights that he can find, right? And everyone's terrified of him. And Lamorak is ready to fight him, right? Lamorak is like, well, I think I can undertake that. I'm going to go and I'm going to defeat this guy. And then up pops Sir Tristram, who goes and kills him before he can get there, right? Now, what would Sir Palomides do, right? If Sir Palomides were in that position, Sir Palomides would be gnawing his own tongue with frustration, right? What does Lamorak do? He's like, oh, no, that's great. Good on you, Tristram, right? He's totally fine with it. He is, I think, a fascinating exemplar, and we can see it again and again, of humility. Anyway, okay. I'm going to stop there. We'll continue with we'll finish up Sir Lamorak, which is, I don't have too much here with Sir Lamorak, but we'll do some of that and then Lacote Maltail, and I think that's probably as far as we're going to get. So we'll count ourselves officially a week, so we're going to add, I said we're going to add a catch-up week. That'll be this coming week, so that by the end of this coming week, we'll be at the end of the story of Lacote Maltail, which will be where we were theoretically supposed to be for today. So that's fine. So then we'll be caught up. Then we're going to have, then the week after that is Thanksgiving week, and I'm going to be away, so we won't have class the next week. And then we'll come back and continue the week after that. So back with more Sir Tristram and Sir Palomides, and we'll get some more direct Lancelot and Guinevere action instead of just the indirect Lancelot and Guinevere stuff that we've been getting here. All the setup for the Lancelot and Guinevere stuff, the template for Lancelot and Guinevere's issues that we're going to be seeing. So thank you, everybody, for joining me again. Really, really fun class, and I look forward to next week. Don't forget, Magnolia Moot coming up this coming weekend. Don't forget. Looking forward to seeing some of you guys down in Charlotte this coming weekend, and hopefully we'll be able to catch up with the rest of you at other places and at other times. So thanks, everybody. See you guys next week. Bye now.
The Mythgard Academy has been offering in-depth discussions of awesome books and films since 2013, completely free to attend and free to download. If you've enjoyed our discussions and would like to help them continue, please consider donating at signumuniversity.org/fund.